What a season it has been for Derby County, and what a moment we achieved on the weekend. What a celebration to be a part of. But now it's time to get down to the nitty gritty. We've got some big moves coming up over this summer window. We've got to make some big moves. We've got a lot of players out of contract. We're losing some big players, and we've got to make some moves. Paul Warne and his recruitment team will already be focused on that. Maybe they're already having conversations with the players of like Ebou Adams or other players which they are interested in. But shall we now take a look into those players who are going to be either moving on or retained, but their contracts are up at the end of this season, or their loan deals expire. Let's start off by looking at the superstar himself, Ebou Adams. What a season Ebou Adams had, especially in that second half. 17 appearances, 1,438 minutes, 2 goal contributions, 6 yellow cards, and an average of a 6.97, according to Who Scored. And I have to say, his loan is expiring, but we've got to go out and try and pick him up and make him a permanent signing, because what a revelation to the midfield he has been. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below or in this top corner. While you're at it, let me know in the comments which players you'd keep or get rid of, with the players heading back on loan and out of contract. And if you do want to join the channel memberships, that is now an option. Click the link in the description below. It will give you all the information you need to know, and there will be a community post on the channel about it, so you can go and check that out. And thank you for all the support. I'll let you now get back into the video, but make sure you do let me know who you'd keep or you'd get rid of. Obviously, in many seasons gone by, Derby have missed bite in the midfield, and I know people said we had it with Graham Shinney, and as much as I thought Graham Shinney was a good player, I think sometimes he lacked a bit of what we needed. Ebou Adams, on the other hand, has been exactly what we needed in that midfield, and we've got a partnership that worked between him and Korey Smith, especially towards the back end of the season. Obviously, him and Max Bird had a good run as well. But what a player that we brought in. There was a lot of people at the time were speculative of him signing and whether he was good enough and things like that. Obviously, struggled to play for Cardiff with injuries and then just couldn't get back into the squad. And it was one of the first transfer videos that I made on this channel, and I have to give a big thank you to that video, because it gained me, I think, nearly 50 subscribers, and it's really helped me push along what I've been doing on this channel, talking about Derby. And for me, I think Ebou Adams is going to be a key player that needs to stay. Like his influence in the second half of the season, and the way he chucks himself in front of balls, the way he was able to link up with anybody in midfield. Even with Conor Hourihane next to him, he still didn't look out of place, and he always found a way to make his position work. He played further forward at times when we had other players on the pitch. And I think I saw a tweet from Owen Bradley where Owen Bradley said that we only conceded 7 goals in those 17 appearances, which I think is absolutely crazy. It just shows how good he was to tighten up that midfield. And obviously, you've got to praise the back four as well. They've had an absolutely unbelievable season. Well, back four, back five. And Ebou Adams is a player that, if we can, I would look to retain, look to get him on a permanent deal from Cardiff, even if it's a loan for another season. Get him in the door, see if he can obviously keep up those performances in the Championship. Going to need a massive rebuild in midfield. We're not going to talk about Max Bird in this video, as that deal's already done, but obviously we're losing a big player in him, and bringing in someone like Ebou Adams, not necessarily to replace the technical ability of Max Bird, but definitely to add a bit of fight and guile in that midfield. We're going to now take a look at someone who I felt was really unlucky this season, and it's Tyreece John-Jules. And when he was fit, he showed a lot. He really did. I thought he put in some really, really good performances for us this season. And the problem with this deal is, I think if we were to sign him, it's a situation where we're potentially wasting money. Now, he scored twice, no assists, a yellow card, 6.25 average rating, 14 appearances, 339 minutes, and I think there's something there about him. The problem is fitness, and obviously we renewed him. Then what was it? A week later, he goes and does his hamstring at versus Reading away in a 1-0 defeat, and he'd only just come on as well, and it just started to find some form, and he just started to find his feet in the starting 11 as well. I think he'd started like 3 or 4 out of the past 5 or 6 games. It might not have been that many, but like it just started getting into the team and having his opportunity, and he was taking it, and I feel really bad for him, and I do think he'll end up with a club. Obviously, I think Arsenal will let him go this summer as his contract expires, and I think he'll find himself a home in League One or League Two, and I think what he needs to do is he just needs to prove his fitness, because if he can stay fit, I think he'd score 10-15 goals in League One. I do think he's got that ability, but has he now got to adjust his game because of his injuries? Is that going to affect what he's capable of doing? And like, obviously, he had his moments for us. He had his moments last season for Ipswich. He's gone back-to-back with promotions. And can he go again next season with wherever he ends up? I don't think it'll be at Derby. If he does end up at Derby, I hope it's a performance-based deal, because obviously 14 appearances out of what I think we played 55 games this season in all competitions, only 339 minutes. Like, it's hard, because I do think there's a player in there, and unfortunately is one who I don't think we'll see back in a Derby County shirt next season. And now we go on to Scott Loach, third choice goalkeeper. His contract is expiring this summer. Brought in by Liam Rosenior to offer competition in goal to Joe Wildsmith. And for me, I think Loachy staying as a third choice keeper, as a split role between third choice keeper, academy coaching, which is sort of what he's done this season anyway. I'm not saying that we should keep him. I'm not saying we should get rid of him. I think this one, it's very much a case of he can help out behind the scenes just as much as in the first team environment. The real question would be, is there going to be an opportunity to bring in a better third choice keeper, or for someone like Jack Thompson or Harry Evans to make that step up into that third keeper role? Obviously with Wildsmith and Josh Vickers, obviously we'll get into Wildsmith in a minute because his contract expires at the end of this season too. But with those two keepers, if they both stay, there's not really much of an opportunity to get into that first team without a red card, an injury or something like that. And obviously you have to take your moments. And at the moment, is Loach blocking that pathway? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. For me, I'd probably give him another year, put him on a split contract between goalkeeper coaching with the academy and what have you. And then obviously keeping around the first team for third choice keeping, keep standards up and things like that. So yeah, that's Scott Loach. And then next up, we have Darren Robinson. I made a video earlier in the season about why it was important we keep him. I believe he was a Scholar of the Season for the 22-23 season. I think he's a very good player, capped at international level for his age group. And he's been pretty much ever present for the 21s this season. And he's made a couple of first team appearances as well in the EFL Trophy. He's made quite a few appearances on the bench as well. And we know there's interest elsewhere from, I believe it's like the likes of Southampton, Norwich, West Ham. And for me, I think it's important we tie him down to a new long-term deal. I'm not sure whether the deal he's currently on has an optional extension from the club or the player, but it'll be interesting to see if he does stay. For me, I'd keep him, get him out on loan next season so he's playing men's first team football, and then see where he is in a year's time. But for me, we've got to get him on a new longer term deal, 3 years maybe. Give him the opportunity to develop. He's still only a young lad. He's got a long way to go, a long time to develop really before we have to make a proper decision on whether he's first team material or not. But for me, definitely a player I'd keep around the building. And then we have Captain Conor Hourihane, and what a season he has had. And it's not necessarily been pretty to watch at times for Conor Hourihane, and especially towards the back end of the season. I'm not going to say his legs have gone or he's not got quality anymore, because he certainly does. But I just think when we brought in Ebou Adams, I think it completely changed the complexion of the midfield and what we needed. And I think getting to lift that trophy, it would not surprise me with all the coaching stuff he's doing off the field if he ends up retiring and going into more of a coaching role. I know this season he had a split coaching role, I believe, at Villa, and then obviously playing here. Didn't impact when he'd be at Derby or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see what he does do. Obviously this season, made 46 appearances, 2,766 minutes, 6 goals, 8 assists, 9 yellow cards, 6.79 average rating. And obviously he's scored some really good goals and he's got some really important assists this season. Obviously, being a very good set-piece taker, he's had masses of opportunities this season to create chances and score goals. And he has done just that. For me, I wouldn't personally keep him going up to the Championship. I think at times, especially in the second half of the season, I think he struggled to keep up with the demands of League One. I think he's a very good player to have around the dressing room, but a player with his quality shouldn't just be there for vibes and personality. He should be there because he's playing, and I think if he wants to continue playing, he'll have plenty of offers throughout the football league. Obviously, League One, League Two, maybe even a couple of Championship offers. But for me, I think it's time we ended it on a positive, exactly what Conor wanted to do, and hopefully he finds another club or he goes and ends up doing what he wants to do, whether that be coaching or what have you. But for me, Conor is a player who I would move on. I think we need some younger bodies in that midfield. And I just think time's up for Conor at Derby County. Very impressed with how he's been over the past 2 seasons, especially back end of this season. Not really kicking up a fuss about not starting, not really playing. But he's done his job when he's come on, and that's the important thing. And I do want to say a big thank you to Captain Conor Hourihane. What an impressive season. What a magical moment he gave us with that trophy lift. And let's get into the next player. Another one who, it's an emotional decision with Martin Waghorn. Missed Derby County. Came back in pre-season to play in Forsyth's testimonial. Unattached to a club. And played really well that day. And put in quite a good show for himself in training, which ended up with him getting a contract. And he started the season really, really well. Obviously, the hat-trick at Peterborough. Ended the season on 7 goals, and he's been on 7 goals for quite some time. 27 appearances, 951 minutes, 2 yellows, 6.51 average rating. I think he ends the season with one of the highest minutes per goal ratings in the league. Now, if he'd have played more, would he have scored more? Probably. But he spent a large period out injured, and he got injured, I'm not sure which game it was, but then he came back to play Fleetwood in the EFL Trophy, got injured again, and was sort of out of the picture till about end of February, March time when James Collins got injured. And it was just one of them seasons for Waghorn where he still scored 7 goals. Like, he still had a fairly decent season for a player who's been injured a lot, and obviously he's missed some massive chances as well. You can't really ignore that. I think there was one at Northampton. I think there was one at Wickham. Was there one at Wickham? There might have been one at Wickham away. And it's just one of those things. And for me, I think I'd love Waghorn to stay around Derby in a coaching capacity of some description. Whether he wants to do that, I don't really know. But for me, he's such an amazing person, and he's got such a really good personality. And obviously his kid's in the academy, which obviously may keep him about. I believe his kid's still in the academy. He might not be. I could be wrong. You'll have to let me know down in the comments if you do know. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Waghorn. For me, I think we've got to let him go in a playing capacity, unless he wants to do sort of like a Bradley Johnson, Tom Huddleston role, split coaching and playing with the 21s. But I probably think he'd probably want maybe another season or two playing at the top highest level he can. I think he could probably do another season at League One, maybe a couple more seasons at League One. But yeah, so Waghorn's another one I'd move on. Just one of those things. You'll have to let me know your thoughts down in the comments on this as well. Obviously, Waghorn's had a fairly decent season, and we move on to Liam Thompson now, who went through a really, really unfortunate period. He really found his feet at the start of this season and was arguably our best player at Peterborough away. And then he picked up an injury which kept him out until December, mid-December, I want to say. And his one goal was one of the most important goals of the season in a comeback versus Oxford United. And 26 appearances, 754 minutes, 1 yellow card, and a 6.21 average rating for Liam. I think there's a lot more to come from Liam Thompson. Definitely a player whose contract I would renew heading into a championship campaign. He's already shown that he's capable of playing at that level under Wayne Rooney and Liam Rosenior, putting some mega performances that season. Especially, I think it was his debut, his first start versus Bournemouth, where he ran rings around their midfield. And as much as there's a lot of emotion from Derby County fans and their academy players, I do think Liam Thompson is a player who can go on to bigger things, especially now we're in the Championship. I do think we're going to need more contributions from him, goals, assists wise. But obviously, will he sign a new contract? For me, I think Paul Warne would be stupid not to keep him. He's a player who runs his heart out, puts in a shit ton of effort, and I do think he deserves a new contract at the club, and is one of those players who's aided securing promotion. Obviously, we can't really put too much emotion into this decision of who stays, who goes, because we need to make sure we have the best possible squad for next season. But for me, I'd keep Liam Thompson. Keeping a good core of the squad is going to be really important, and I think having the likes of Liam Thompson, Erin Cashin, Louie SIbley around the place, and I think they're going to be mega important heading into next season. And that leads me into the next one of Louie SIbley. Obviously, his contract's up this summer. 41 appearances, 2,054 minutes, 3 goals, 3 assists, 7 yellows, and a 6.56 average rating. A move from midfield to left wing back, left back, has, for me, changed a lot of people's perspective on Louie SIbley. I think he's been so impressive since the injuries to Forsyth and Elder, and even Elder came back for a game and SIbley didn't play, and I just didn't think we was as safe. I thought SIbley has been so good in that left back, left wing back position. I do think he'll get a new contract. I think I don't even think it's a question of if he gets a new contract. I think it's when. I do think he'll be here next season, but if he doesn't, and the same for Liam Thompson, what an ending they could have to their Derby County career. Now, I do think both can play at championship level. I think they've both shown it in the past. Obviously, Louie SIbley went through a bit of a turbulent time, not really getting in the side under Wayne Rooney, and towards the back end of Koku's time, and then into Wayne Rooney's time, sort of couldn't really find his feet. But I think he's really found his feet at left back, left wing back. Obviously, the club will be looking to improve, but we saw with Craig Forsyth the amount of left backs that we've brought in, and he's still been he probably would have still been first choice all season if it wasn't for his injury. And for me, I think Louie SIbley, he has to get a new contract just to keep him about. Very good utility player, if nothing else. He can play left back, he can play left wing back, he can play in the middle of the park, whether that be as an 8 or a 10. He can play on the right hand side, the left hand side. So for me, definitely should keep him about, even if it's just a squad option and he's got to build his way back into the side like he's done this season. I'd definitely keep him about. We go on now to Tom Barkhuizen. Not 100% if I've spelt his name right up there. You'll have to let me know down in the comments. Obviously, his contract's expiring, as the rest of these players' are contracts expiring. And for me, it's difficult because there's going to be a lot of wide playing options. And obviously, we know there was a situation last season where Barkhuizen wasn't sure if he'd still be at the club, with obviously the move to a 3-5-2. But in the end, even if that moved to a 3-5-2, he did find his position in that system towards the end of the season, playing in behind Mendes Lang and Dwight Gayle at the time, where I think he found some really good form. And obviously, 41 appearances this season, 1,845 minutes, 7 goals, 6 assists, 1 yellow card, and a 6.62 average rating. Now, he probably didn't start as many games as he would have liked. Obviously, went for a period injured as well, which came at a really bad time for him because he'd got into the side, he was playing really well, and then got hit with that injury. And for me, I do think he's a very good player. I do think he could do a job in the Championship, but the big question about renewing this contract is, what players are available in those wide areas in that 10 role that are potentially better. Obviously, Tom Barkhuizen will have had championship options when he left Preston to come to us. And he came to us. He's got the job done, getting us promoted. I would like to see him get another year on his contract and stay about for a season in the Championship and assess it there. But I do think that he's going to be someone that's going to be let go of. Obviously, with Corey Blackett-Taylor signing, Nathaniel Mendez-Lang has, I believe, another 2 years on his contract. I think we'll bring in a couple of wingers in the summer window, but I don't think Tom Barkhuizen is going to be in and around it. I think he's going to be moving on to pastures new. And obviously, we'll go through the retain list when it comes out, but that's just my initial thoughts on Tom Barkhuizen. And then we have James Collins. Now, this is a very interesting topic of discussion because I think you've got to keep a good core of players. And I think James Collins knows what Paul Warne wants. He works hard. He'll press. He runs the channels. Now, not very fast, but he does it. And you can't fault the effort from James Collins. You can't fault how much he wants it and how much he's loved playing for Derby County. And it's 1 goal away this season from 20 goals. And obviously the season's over now, but 19 goals, 2 assists, 9 yellows, 6.76 average rating in 43 appearances and 2,727 minutes. He's had a very good season at this level. And I don't think many people can complain about him. And for me, I think there's going to be a situation where there's going to be a decision made on both James Collins and Dwight Gayle, who we'll get into in a minute. And I do think James Collins will stay. Obviously, Connor Washington is another forward who's still going to be about the place next season. Obviously, Dejan Brown heading back from his loan spell. And I think keeping Collins, although some people probably disagree and will think it's the wrong decision, I think it's a smart decision to keep a striker. 2 strikers who know what Paul Warne wants. With Washington and Collins, they both know what he wants in the 3-5-2, in the 3-4-3, when they play a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3. They all know what Paul Warne already wants. And for me, I'd keep James Collins. Might be a bit of a discussion topic for a lot of people, but for me, I think he has to stay. We go on to the next one with Korey Smith. Actually, we'll skip Korey Smith for a second and get on to Dwight Gayle, sticking with the forwards. I'd bring Gayle back for pre-season. I would. I'd definitely bring him back for pre-season. See if we can keep him fit and then potentially give him 6 months, maybe, to see if he can hack it in the Championship. Obviously, signed a short-term deal. We got Ryan Nyambi on a short-term deal this season. Obviously, his contract's been extended already. So, obviously, 3 goals in 6 appearances, 326 minutes with a yellow card and a 6.72 average rating. And I thought Dwight Gayle was mega impressive during his time on the pitch. And I was really disappointed when he got injured. And I really did think that was going to cost us automatic promotion. But fortunately, it didn't. James Collins stepped up. Sonny Bradley stepped up. Kane Wilson stepped up. And we got the results we needed. And for me, I'd keep him back for pre-season, see how he gets on fitness-wise. And then you've got 3 strikers, so Paul Warne can play a 4-4-2, a 3-5-2. And then obviously you've got Dejan Brown coming through. I'd bring in a couple of strikers as well. I don't want to block that pathway for Dejan Brown, but I do think he needs another loan spell. So for me, it'd be a case of give Collins a year, give Gayle a year, 6 months a year. Obviously Washington's, I think, has got another year on his contract. And that would leave... Obviously, you don't want too many strikers, but that would leave the option for another out-and-out striker and another striker who can play multiple positions. Someone a bit like Waghorn who can play in behind or out wide, or someone like Mendez-Lang who can play out wide but up front or in the 10. And I think that would be a really good decision to make from Paul Warne, but we'll have to see what the club decide to do on that. Obviously, ageing bodies in that forward line, and it would probably help if we had some younger ones. Obviously, we spoke about Conor Hourihane earlier, and how I thought it was time for him to move on. But I think Korey Smith has shown since returning from injury how good he can be. And he's really fitted in next to Ebou Adams and whoever's played in front of them, whether that be Tom Barkhuizen or Liam Thompson or Max Bird. I think Korey Smith has shown some real quality and in 35 appearances, 2 goal contributions. And I do think we need more from our midfield when it comes to goals and assists. but Korey Smith has never been known for his goals or his assists, and he picked up 3 yellows as well with a 6.56 average rating, and he is a player I'd keep, just so we've got a bit of a core going on. We're pretty set. We need to, if we keep Wildsmith, we've got a keeper. Then the back 3 are all here next season. Granted, none of them move on for fees and what have you. Right wing back will be Nyambi or Wilson or Ward. Left wing back, at the moment, the only person we've got in contract is Callum Elder. But for me, I'd keep SIbley. And then we'll get on to Forsyth in a minute. So it's sort of like we're in a bit of a predicament of what to do with that back 5 situation. But then in midfield, you've got Max Bird's leaving, Hourihane's out of contract, Smith's out of contract, Thompson's out of contract, Ebou Adams goes back to his parent club. We've not really got anybody contracted in midfield, which is one of the reasons why I'd keep the likes of Korey Smith and try and retain Ebou Adams and keep Louie, SIbley and Liam Thompson, because they can all play those roles and you can then add to that. And even if Korey Smith ends up being a depth player off the bench or for cup games, I think it would be good for him to stay. I think he'd want to stay from what he said on BBC Radio Derby, but we'll just have to see what the manager chooses to do with that one. Obviously then we go on to Joe Wildsmith, who takes home the Golden Glove in a season where I didn't think he'd stay number 1. I thought at first opportunity Paul Warne would put Vickers in. Obviously, Paul Warne known Vickers from his time at Rotherham and stuff like that. But Wildsmith did lose his place at, I think it was like 4 or 5 games early in January after the Peterborough game. And although that happened, in 40 league appearances, he kept 20 clean sheets in 3,558 minutes. 3 yellow cards and a red, which was later rescinded. 6.62 average rating. For me, Wildsmith has to stay. I think we'd be stupid to let him go. I think it would be an absolutely outrageous decision to let him go. And with all due respect to Paul Warne, the recruitment staff and everything like that, if we can't keep Joe Wildsmith heading into the Championship, I'll be very disappointed. Obviously, if he then ends up at a Premier League club or something, completely different conversation, not Warne's fault and whatnot. But is definitely a player who I'd keep. I think he needs to stay, because then you can essentially keep your entire back 5 and just add to it and improve. Because obviously, Joe Ward found his form. Nyambi will be coming back to fitness. Rooney will be coming back to fitness as well. So we could essentially have a set starting 11 ready before we even head into the summer, where we can just add bodies to improve depth or improve the quality. Obviously, I think midfield's going to need a big boost of quality. And I think the forward line's going to need a big boost of quality. Obviously, I think Corey Blackett-Taylor will be in a much better position next season. I think fitness was his biggest problem after coming from Charlton, where he was used completely differently. But obviously, forward line needs a bit of improvement. The midfield's going to need a lot of improvement. The back 3 probably won't change much, but I do think we'll bring centre halves in, maybe even a left wing back. But it's going to be interesting to see the summer. But I do think we have to keep Joe Wildsmith, because I just can't see a reason why it would be a sensible decision to lose him. And then Forsyth. This is an emotional decision. He's been at the club, I think this was his 10th or 11th year, 30 appearances, and he still looks incredible. I don't think he's lost his legs. And when you think of the injuries he's had, and I think he's 34, 35 now, and the injuries he's had, and he's still playing and putting up really good performances and really good numbers. Obviously, he can slot in at centre half. He can play left back. He can play left wing back. Obviously, I won't put him any further forward than that, but like, he can play in those positions, and it is a perfect way for him to go out with the promotion if he wants to retire. If he wants to stay, I'd give him another year. Personally, I'd keep him about as a utility player. He'd probably end up finding himself starting anyway, because that's just what he's done throughout his career at Derby County. And for me, if he wants to stay, I'd keep him. If he doesn't, I hope he retires, because I don't think I could see Craig Forsyth wearing another shirt with everything he's been through with the club and all the highs and the lows. And I think it would just be a perfect way for him to end his career on a promotion, But if he does stay, he can, like, I would give him another year. But if he goes, I hope he retires in the nicest possible way. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Forsyth. I love him. I think he's been an incredible servant to the club, and he comes across as such an incredible person. And hopefully he does get a new deal for next season, but that's going to be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, let's close out this video then. Obviously, a lot of players out of contract or leaving back to their parent clubs, and a lot of decisions to make for Derby County. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Let me know who you'd keep, who you'd get rid of down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. Make sure to go and follow me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.